With the 11th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Chris Olave.
Target. This is a repeat, and it's the right guy. Olave, touchdown.
See, I'm not sure if you read the scouting report, but Chris Olave is pretty fast.
Olave, as a young receiver, really understands his routes, and he understands how to run them.
It's the 49th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. The New Orleans Saints select
Alontae Taylor, defensive back.
Hayward, he got hit hard by Alontae Taylor. Is incomplete. By Taylor.
Welcome to our New Orleans Saints draft preview show presented by Cox. I'm Erin Summers, joined by New Orleans Football's Nick Underhill. We have been waiting for the draft for quite some time. It kicks off tonight, 7 o'clock Central, and will continue over the weekend. Nick, how excited are you for it to finally be here?
Well, it gets exhausting by this point of going through mock drafts, trying to predict what they're going to do. We're finally going to actually have new players to talk about. It's been a action-packed offseason, but now to get some more guys on the team and talking about actual players instead of theories, that is a welcome transition for me.
Well, and the first player that the Saints will be able to pick will come at 29 in the first round. They have a pick in the second round and the third round, so we'll see those on Friday, and then they have 5 picks in rounds 4 through 7 on Saturday. So we have a lot of players and people to discuss, a lot of possibilities that are out there for the Saints. They did make some big moves in free agency, though, addressing their biggest need, picking up quarterback Derek Carr, made a splash with running back Jamal Williams from Detroit, and then they lost some defensive linemen with Shai Tuttle, Marcus Davenport, David Onyemata leaving. With all of the moves that were made in free agency, how would you evaluate what the Saints were able to do?
I thought it was a really good offseason for them. Going out and getting Derek Carr, I thought just raised the floor on the season so much. And just having someone that I think can go out there and command the offense, that has experience in this type of offense, I think that's going to be a huge change for everybody. I think it's going to help Pete Carmichael run the offense. And I think that they got a chance to win this division. I think they should be the favorites going into it. I think they do need a good draft to shore up the defense a little bit.
Heading into the draft with what they were able to do in free agency, what are some of the positions you think they still need to address?
For me, the number one is defensive tackle and defensive end. It can be an either or, but they need to get another player that I think can go out there and win a one-on-one and get a sack that maybe isn't schemed up through a blitz or something like that. So that is a huge need for the team. But really, you go across the board, there's a need for depth almost everywhere on the roster. They need probably another linebacker. They could use another safety. They could use another pass catcher, whether that's a wide receiver or a tight end. And guard is kind of a sneaky need too, with Andrews Pete being in the last year of his contract and Cesar Ruiz not getting his 5th-year option yet. So they could pretty much go just about anywhere but center. I think Eric McCoy has that one locked down. They don't need another one. But other than that, they could use players almost anywhere.
Yeah, I've definitely seen offensive line, defensive line, and tight end has been one that's been popping up over the past week or so. Any players that you want to go ahead and put out there for any of those positions?
Yeah, so I've been kind of up in the air on a handful of them, and just coming into this week, the one guy that I really like for them that I think could potentially be there in that 20 to 29 range, maybe they have to move up a little to get him, Brian Brzee, the defensive tackle from Clemson. He battled a lot of injuries in college. Last year, his sister died before the season. A lot of tough circumstances. The numbers aren't quite there, but when you watch him, he does just about everything they need out of that position. So that's a guy I kind of got circled. And if they got to go offense, I like Quentin Johnston, the wide receiver from TCU. He's a little bit thin, probably needs to add a little bit of weight, but he makes contested catches. He's tall, and he can probably be that big physical receiver that they need in this offense.
All right, those are Nick's thoughts. We're going to send it over to NFL Network's Rhett Lewis. He's going to give us some of his thoughts on what the Saints need heading into the NFL draft.
Hey, thanks, Aaron. What's up, Saints fans? Great to be back here with you talking draft. And where you're selecting this year at 29, always a bit of a wild card based on everything that's going to play out before we get to that pick and when the Saints are on the clock. But let's throw out some names that could be of consideration as they kind of relate to needs for the Saints this year. I'm thinking on the defensive side of the ball, some attrition along the defensive line during this past offseason. So maybe if one of those edge rushers, like a Felix Anudike-Uzomah from Kansas State, or maybe Iowa State's Will McDonald kind of sitting there, might help further bolster that rotation along the defensive line for the Saints. I loved what Anudike-Uzomah did, studying him ahead of the combine. Felt like he was he could have been the example for that hoop drill tape that they run at the combine. Thought he has fantastic bend, great speed, awareness, pursuit, all that stuff that the Saints would really love. And then Will McDonald, absolute burst off the edge. You know, on the offensive side of the ball, I was also looking at the tight end group. Yep. Got Juwan Johnson there, got Adam Troutman there, who you spent some draft resources on a couple of years ago. But man, if Darnell Washington from Georgia is sitting there at 29, feels like a pick that could really help kind of serve two purposes, right? He is like a sixth offensive lineman with the way he blocks. Might remind you a bit of like a Hobie Brenner or a John Tice back in the day. And then he's got some potential in the pass game as well that maybe we didn't quite see develop throughout his entire collegiate career. So you know what? Maybe it's the nostalgia in me with those comps that I mentioned. I'm going with Darnell Washington here for the Saints at 29. Now back to you guys in New Orleans.
In 2022, the Saints had 2 first-round picks, wide receiver Chris Olave and offensive tackle Trevor Penning. We didn't get to see a lot of Penning, but with those 2 picks, what would you see their expectations being like in this year coming up?
I think the sky's the limit for Chris Olave. Just this offseason, he needed to go out and get a little bit stronger, and he's been working on that. If he adds that contested catch element to his game, I think that he can be one of the better wide receivers in this league. We saw it last year, just the route running, the ability to get open. It was through the roof. Trevor Penning, on paper, physically, he has everything he needs to succeed. He just needs to stay healthy and get on the field. And it's a little bit hard to know where he's going to be coming back this season because he did have the 2 foot injuries last year. But if he can go out there and he can play and he can pick up the offense, everything is there for him to be good. He just needs to be able to put it together.
When you're evaluating draft classes, you want to look at, was that player a difference maker? And I think the Saints have done a good job with that as the rounds go, to continue to find difference makers. Alontae Taylor, the cornerback last year, was a great pickup. He was very effective, jumping in, filling in a spot when there were injuries. What did you like about him?
I thought he was really, really good. His confidence was just contagious even. I think players fed off that a little bit, and his belief in self carried him quite a bit. There's still room for him to get a little bit better. The over-aggression at times, I think, got the best of him in his tackling, and then just in some of his coverage stuff, he didn't necessarily get burned, but I think he could be a little bit stickier by just not trying to over-pursue some things. So it's just kind of having things slow down a little bit and being able to settle into himself. I think that's going to come, though, just with experience, and it got better last year as time went on, and he was aware of these issues, so he was working on them. But I think that he can be a really, really good corner. The way he started out, the team should be really optimistic about him.
Let's hear from somebody who's at the very top in general manager, Mickey Loomis, and his thoughts heading into the draft.
Look, we're looking for the best player that we can get, best football player we can get. And that encompasses a lot of things. It's not just about ability, it's about the makeup of the player. Does he fit our culture? Is he going to be great in our locker room? Does he have leadership skills? It's all these other things outside of ability, physical ability. So I think that's an important part of it. In terms of who we're drafting, it's, man, let's get somebody we love. And that may be at a position that we need, and hopefully it is, but it may be at a position that we already have as a strength.
Since 2008, the Saints have made 20 draft day trades, and they have all been to move up. Nick, you think we see one again this year?
I mean, if you're betting, I would say, yeah, 8 picks. I don't know if we're going to see all 8 picks. I'd be surprised if they pick that many players. So, yeah, I think it's definitely a possibility. And it's always a prime target in round 1. And I think if they were to move up, you're probably looking at 29 and 71 to get to 17, 18, 19, 20 to pick somebody. If you're going all the way up, it's probably a future first-round pick like last year, but that's going to be expensive. And it will be interesting to see how it shakes out.
Who's a player that you'd be willing or you would want to move up for?
For me, it's Brian Brzee, and that's going to be my name all throughout this. I'm sticking with him the whole way. If he's sitting there at 20, I'm probably going to start getting a little bit itchy. If I'm Mickey Loomis, I'm making the calls, and if I can go up and I can give up my 3rd rounder to get a guy that can probably help my defensive line this year, I got to make the deal.
Can I go with Hercules?
Sure.
Defensive end Lucas Van Ness from Iowa.
Sure, yeah, no.
I mean, he's got a big, long body as well, which is something that the Saints really like on the line. So.
Yeah, I've heard Atlanta likes him too, so it would fit the type of the Saints system. Ryan Nielsen's there, of course, so he is a Saints type of player.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. We're looking forward to it. And if you want to join us for day 3, Saturday, you can, right here at the Saints facility. They are teaming up with Cox to host the all-new 2023 Saints Draft Crawfish Cook-Off. It is from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Auctioner Sports Performance Center. It is new this year that they're having a crawfish cook-off competition featuring an array of local restaurants, caterers, and teams vying for the title of the best crawfish. Guests in attendance will be able to watch the 2023 NFL Draft on televisions all over the event, as the Saints currently have those 5 draft picks on Saturday. Head to NewOrleansSaints.com to get your tickets for this awesome event. I will be there, I will be hosting, so I look forward to seeing everybody there. And Nick, tell us, where can we find your coverage of the NFL Draft?
NewOrleans.football. We have everything. Hopefully you need that Saints.com doesn't have on the Saints draft picks throughout the whole event.
And you can follow along with us on @Saints on Twitter, as we'll be keeping up with the draft that kicks off 7 o'clock Central live from Kansas City. We'll have our post-draft show coming up this next week on Monday. Nick Underhill will again join me. We appreciate you being here today, and we look forward to all of the draft picks and coverage right here on NewOrleansSaints.com.